Hello and welcome to yet another YouTube Live here at Tutorac. In this series that we have been doing so far, where every single day I come up and take up a YouTube Live and talk about some interesting technical topics, this particular YouTube Live is going to be slightly different from each of these live videos that we have done. Usually what we would always do is we try to take up some interesting topic, try to also understand how we can make use of that topic and actually do a little bit of hands-on programming about it. It has always been around the ideas of development and it has always been around the ideas of those skills that are very relevant in the industry. But today we are going to choose to do something which is slightly different. So whenever we talk about any application, this application is going to be used by some sort of users, right? This application will be used by some users. These users will come to this application, will try to do some kind of activities, and then we want them to do the activities, but at the same time, we want to always have some kind of control. Let me give you an example. So very recently, all the banks have now become digitalized. There was a time when people had to go to banks for basic things like getting money or doing a bank transfer or etc. etc. But today, everything is possible with the help of something like net banking or mobile banking. You just have to install a mobile application of your bank, enter your credentials, log in, verify yourself, and there you are. You can actually go ahead and do whatever you want, right? But let me give you an example. Let's say that there are two members in your family, yourself and let's say your brother or your sister, okay? And you guys want to, or let's say you have the same bank, or remember I'm saying same bank, not same bank account. Let's say you have same bank for your banking needs. Now, let's say you actually have X rupees inside your own bank account, and your friend who is B, let's say they have Y rupees in their bank account. So the only way that you can get this information is by asking them, right? Now, let's say that there can be a situation that you want to actually access what is the account balance in your own account. You can go to this application, check your balance, and you will know how much money you have in your bank account. Trust me, when I try to look for my balance, I am not happy. But anyway, so when you go ahead and start to look for your bank balance, you will get to see how much money you have in your bank account. But at the same time, let's say you actually are curious to know how much money your friend has in their bank account. So, can you actually go and find their balance? That is the number of or the amount of money that they have in their bank account? Probably not, right? You actually can't do that. Very recently, I actually did go to my bank and I had some banking requirement, some tasks to be done. So I went and I met the branch manager of that bank, and he was nice and he was easy to talk to. So I explained him my problem and he wanted to help me out. So he asked me for some sort of information related with my bank, something like account number or something like that. And I gave him that account number. And then he was able to take out all the information, like what amount of money I have in that bank, what amount of fixed deposits I have in that bank, what kind of ATM card I'm holding, what kind of credit card I'm holding, etc. etc. He was able to take out all of those information. But let's say I want to transfer some money to you and you give me an account number. Will I be able to take out all this information out for you, whether I'm a banking user of the same bank or not? Probably not, right? Similarly, let's talk about a very famous shopping platform like Amazon. Let's say today you can actually see your own orders on Amazon, right? You can actually see your own orders on Amazon. You can see all the items you bought, etc., etc. But can you see the orders that, let's say, a friend of yours has placed on his or her or their phone? You can't unless you actually go and ask them. But at the same time, if you call Amazon for a customer support, and they might ask you some information like your email ID or your phone number, they will be able to track all the orders that you have. They might also be able to track orders for other people as and when they would require it. So what I'm trying to actually say is there can be differences in using a specific piece of information on the basis of who you are. This is called as policy-based authentication control. Okay, this is called as policy-based authorization control. Sorry about me making that mistake. It is called as policy-based authorization control. So in this idea of web, especially when we are dealing with web-based applications, we have to always make sure that there is some amount of security present so that the actions that we want to be taken on our app are taken by people whom we can actually trust. This is a very, very important activity. For example, you yourself can't see your bank balance unless you are logged in into your bank, unless you're logged in into your bank net banking or your bank's mobile banking, right? At the same time, your branch manager, they cannot see your bank information unless they are having that sort of permission, right? So let's say there is a bank called as ABC Bank. Okay, let's say I have an account in this ABC Bank and I have, let's say, rupees 100 in my bank account. I went to my bank and I spoke to the branch manager and I told him about some sort of an issue that I'm dealing with my bank account. So he is also a user of the ABC Bank. I am also a user of the ABC Bank. But because he is a branch manager, he has more privileges and control on what sort of information he can access and change. On the other hand, the only control that I have is mostly reading the information and very few basic things that I can actually do. So this kind of information and this kind of action control is very important when it comes to web-based applications. Let me try to cite a similar example in relation with this. Let's say you are at your home and somebody knocks on your door. Okay, now let's take a scenario number one. Let's say the person who knocks on your door is actually a complete stranger. You don't know this person at all, and this person has knocked on your door and you have opened the door, but because you realize that this person is a stranger, will you ask that person to come inside your house or not, given that you don't know them and you don't resonate with their purpose? In my case, I would actually say no, because I don't know the person, I don't trust the person, so I don't want them to enter my house. Okay. Now let's talk about situation number two. Let's say the person who knocked on your door is your friend. Maybe not a very good friend, let's say your office colleague or something like that. Not your very close, not from your very close circle, just somebody you know. Okay. So let's say you opened the door and you found this person who is not a very great friend but is a good colleague and acquaintance. So this person comes to your house, and I mean, what I'm trying to say is you do let them come to your house, and let's say you ask them to sit in the hall. Let's say they asked you for a glass of water, so you go to the kitchen to fetch them a glass of water. Okay, you give them this glass of water, you're having a small conversation, and this person may leave after this conversation is over. Now, let's say that you actually go to this kitchen to fetch water for this friend, and by the time you come back to the hall, you see that this person is not in the hall anymore. They, let's say, are inside your bedroom and they are trying to find something in your wardrobe or in your almirah or in your closet. Do you think you're going to be okay with this behavior? Probably not, right? Because I would not be okay with this kind of behavior. Okay. Now let's take a third situation. Let's say the third person, or this third condition, the person who knocked on your door is, let's say, your parent. Let's say this can be your father or this can be your mother. And let's say you also have a very good relationship with your parent. And let's say it's your mom who's knocking on the door. So you do open the door, you ask your mom to come inside, and your mom tells you that I'm thirsty, can you please fetch me some water? You go to the kitchen by making your mom sit in the hall, and you actually go and fetch some water. By the time you come back to your room or back to the hall, you see that your mom is not in the hall. On the other hand, she is in your bedroom and she's trying to look for something in your almirah, in your closet or in your wardrobe. I think in this situation, if I ask you a question, will you be okay with this sort of a behavior with your mother? Probably in most cases, I think people would say yes, because she's your mom and it's no big deal that she's going through your almirah or wardrobe, because maybe she's trying to find something. Or even if she's trying to find something related to you, what's the harm, right? What's the harm? After all, she's your mom. So I gave you three situations in which the same identical thing happened, but the person who was involved over here is different. So one time it was a stranger, second time it was your acquaintance, and third time it was your mom, right? So your actions in the situation were completely dependent on the basis of who was at the door, right? Your actions and the kind of activities you did completely dependent on who was at the door. And it was also dependent on the factor that how much you trust the person who was on the door, right? This is exactly what we do in web-based applications. So here in this example that I told you, there are two things that actually did come into picture. One is authorization and the other is authentication. Let's talk about authentication first. Let's say your house is a software and any person who is knocking on the door is a user who wants to use this software. You are a security manager in this software. So at the time when somebody knocks on the door, you check whether you actually know this person or you don't. If you don't know this person, you actually don't let them come inside your house, just like you won't let them run your own software or your own tool. For example, if you go to Amazon, you can actually go and try to find any product on Amazon, but you can't place an order on Amazon unless you are a signed in customer. But on the other hand, you can't access a banking application unless you actually authenticate yourself to be a valid user, right? So there is a process called as authentication, in which a user has to authenticate themselves to a system so that they can actually make use of that system. Today, this authentication system is very prevalent, and now it uses a lot of different types of techniques. Usually, as far as I can remember, it started with email address and password, then it became username and password, then it became phone number and password, and now it has taken advanced forms like phone number and OTP, and then it also has taken forms like the authenticator app, passkeys, biometric identification, and many, many other things. So there is a lot of difference and vibrance inside the world of authentication. So any system you create inside your application that allows a user to come and enter into your application and then make any extra move is called as authentication. So in the most simplest words, authentication is going to be a subject which is going to allow your users, or let's say an old or a new user, to actually come to this platform and authenticate themselves. For example, let's say you want to make use of net banking. Okay, let's say you do have a bank account in a bank, let's say ABC Bank, and you want to see how much money you have in your bank account. You can't actually do that unless you are an authenticated net banking user, right? Similarly, even if you are already a net banking authenticated user, you still need to write the right credentials in order to access it. So your system is going to understand the idea whether you're authenticated or not authenticated. So this is the idea that we use at the time of authentication. When we talk about authentication, it brings a very strong idea of web-based applications, especially backend applications. So backend applications take care of authentication of users, and they provide some relevant information back to the front end so that the front end knows that the user is authenticated or not authenticated. For example, let's say you try to open your Facebook account. Will you be able to access your comments, your pictures, or anything without actually logging in inside your Facebook account? You won't be. So after you have logged in, and let's say you close your laptop for like a day or two, the next time you actually open Facebook, Facebook actually opens up from the place where you actually left it last, right? So it does. So the system knows, or the front end already knows, that you're authenticated user inside the system. So this is how things will work. Okay, this is how things will work. They need to have an authentication system at most places at the time of letting a user enter into your application. Authentication is very important because it is a similar or a very small security rule that every single software or tool should follow. Okay, so this was about authentication. Now let us talk about authorization. So for coming to authorization, I will come back to this example that I gave you a few moments ago, which was about somebody knocking your door and you making the decision on the basis of how well you know that person. So I will try to cater to last two examples. Example one is when your friend, somebody who is not your very good friend, but let's say your friend, is trying to knock on your door. And the second example is going to be your mother trying to knock on the door. Okay, so in these two examples, in example number one, you were not okay with your friend going to your bedroom and trying to search for something in your almirah, wardrobe, or closet, right? But you were okay with them coming and sitting in your hall and asking for water because it's no big deal. On the other hand, when it was your mom, and given that you have a great relationship with your mom, you can actually let your mom come and sit in the hall, and it doesn't make a very big problem for you if she goes and if she tries to look for something in your closet or in your almirah, right? So on the basis of who that person was and how well you knew them, you actually provided different sort of authorities to this person. For example, your friend had the authority to ask for water, but didn't have the authority to go to your bedroom without asking your permission. Whereas in the other case, your mom has the authority to come and sit in your hall and ask for water, but she also has the authority to go in your bedroom and search for something without your permission. Okay, so this is the kind of authorizations that are different for these two people in the example I actually gave. So this is exactly what happens in case of programming as well. So there are multiple systems and multiple things where different types of users have different types of accesses and privileges, and therefore they can actually be controlled what kind of actions they can perform. For example, if you have ever used AWS, AWS will provide you different types of accesses like read-only access, power user access, administrator access, and so on and on, right? Let's say if you only have a read-only access, even though you can actually access all the information on AWS, but you can't delete something or you can't actually add something. On the other hand, if you have a power user access, you can do whatever you want. So the accesses are actually different and are completely on the ideas, and they are based out of the ideas of policy-based access. So we need to identify different types of policies that we want in our system and then allocate them to the right information so that the user can actually make use of it. Now the main question is, how do we identify which user has what policy? So there are so many ways of doing it, but I'm going to talk about one interesting way in this particular video, and that thing is called as JWT. JWT stands for JSON Web Tokens, and they are actually a very popular way of doing authorization related activities. So what is JWT? JWT is actually a token, or in a simpler way, it is a string. It is nothing but a string. And what JWT does is, it is going to contain the information that is present of the user, but it is actually going to be logged with the help of a secret key. So any single time, let's say a user is getting created or you want to modify the permissions that a user will have, you can, at the time of generating token for this user, make sure that you add those permissions inside this token. So once this information is added to the token, just getting the information from the token is not enough. The token must also be valid. So this is the concept of JWT. It contains three things: headers, claims, and secret. Headers is automatically added by JWT, giving, or it will help us to identify what is the type of token and etc. etc. Second is claims, which contains all the important information that we want with the help of this JWT. This is a place where we actually encode the user's information, and we also encode the information related with their permission. And thirdly, there is a secret part. The secret part is actually known to only the person who developed that system, or the only server that actually has the system running. And this must always be unique and should be made sure that it is not leaked out of the system. Okay, so in order to actually make use of any JWT token, we have to verify it once, and only after it is verified is the time when we can actually make use of these accesses that we are trying to provide to the user in this JWT token. Let me give you an example of a JWT token. So I'll open my browser and I will go to a website called as jwt.io. Let's open this website and you will see this beautiful looking website on my screen. So you can see there's something called as debugger, and I want to show you an example of JWT. So this string which is present on my screen, this is actually a JWT. Like I said, it stands for JSON Web Token. So you can see that this particular string is present, or some parts of it are present in different colors. We have something in red, we have something in magenta, and then we have something in aqua or cyan, right? So let's talk about each of these three parts. If you notice, these three parts are separated with a period symbol or a period character or a full stop character, right? So there are two full stops in a JWT string, and each of these full stops are actually acting as a separator. So the first part, which is written in red, it is actually telling us what is the type of this token and what is the algorithm used for creating this token. Second part, which is also called as claims or payload, it is containing the information encoded inside this token. And the last part is actually secret, which is actually containing the secret information, or it's like a password in order to verify the token's authenticity. Let us go ahead and see how it is working. Let's say I create my own password. Let's say I write password is tutorac. Okay, so this is my token. Now I'll copy this token and I'll remove it. Okay, now I will change the password to something else. Let's say ABCXYZ. Okay, and now if I paste this token over here, you will see that it says invalid signature. Why? Because this particular token, especially the blue part, it was created with the help of a signature called as tutorac, but the current signature which is getting used to verify this token is ABCXYZ, which is not the same, and therefore this token is invalid. If I remove it again, and if I write tutorac over here, TUTORAC, and if I paste it over here, you will see it says signature is verified. So this is the kind of code we actually write in the backend. So our code inside the backend is going to check for a given JWT token whether it is valid or invalid. And at the same time, this particular token will have the payload information which will in depth or which in turn will contain the kind of accesses that they have. So let's say that you are a bank manager. As soon as you log in into your system, you will get a JWT token inside your computer or inside your for your user. You can store it on the browser, and then every single time you're trying to, let's say, fetch the list of balances for, let's say, 2 to 3 customers, so you will send this token for this request. Okay, this particular token is going to contain the information that you have the access to make this request or not. In case if you do, the request will succeed. If you don't, request will fail, and it will tell you that you don't have the prevalent or relevant privileges to actually make this action. Similarly, if I want to access, let's say, somebody else's bank balance, I will not be able to do it because my token does not contain that information. So every single time I will make this request, the token verification will fail, and therefore it will not proceed and will not let me make the request in the first place. So this is how authentication and authorization will work. And JWT is actually one very primitive way of doing this authorization. Let us go ahead and see this in action by writing some very basic code. This will require you to have slight number of or slight amount of knowledge for JavaScript based programming language. So you can do this in any programming language, but I'm choosing to do this in JavaScript. So let me just go ahead and open my Visual Studio Code. This is where we are. And the next thing I'm going to do is I will go and open a new folder. Let's say I opened a new window. Over here, let's say I create a new folder. Well, I'll open folder. Then I'll go to A, then I'll go to let's say self, then tutorack, which is present over here. And then I will create a new folder and I will name it, let's say, tutorack security. So now this particular folder is present on my laptop. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize an npm project. So I will write npm space init space dash dash y. This will initialize my npm project, and then I'm going to add something called as npm I JSON web token, which is basically JWT. So yep, it has now been installed. Okay, so now one option that I have is I can make use of Express to do this, but I'm going to choose to not do with the help of Express. Let's say I write my secret first. I'll write const secret is equals to tutorack, for example. Okay, then I will write const JWT is equals to, or I can write something like this. JWT is fine. JWT is equals to require JSON web token. Okay, and then I will write, let's say I'll create two functions, one to create a token and second to check the token. So I'll write function create token. It will take information like payload. So this is a function, and here I will write JWT dot sign. JWT dot sign. Here I will pass the payload that I actually have. It's going to be payload followed by the secret key. So in this case, it is secret. Okay. So this is going to create the token, and I will return this token. So this is the function we are going to use for creating a token, and then I will write function verify token. Verify token. Here I will write, I'll just pass a token, and that's it. Here I will write JWT dot decode. Okay, JWT dot decode, and then I will pass information like token, and then I will write options. It's going to contain decode options. So I need to make sure that I pass this particular secret which is present in our system to verify the token. In order to do this, I will just look at the documentation that they have to actually verify the token. So I'll go to npm home and I will search for JSON web token. On search, this is the one we are looking for. They should have JWT.sign is what we are checking, but they should have something else also, which is to verify. So yeah, the second argument is actually a token. Great. I'll remove it and I will write secret. Okay, so this is going to return something. It returns our JWT string or nothing. I'll write something like this. Try catch Okay, let's try to create a token first. So create a token. Let's say the payload is name as Shantanu and user type, let's say user type is manager. Okay, I'll save it. Then I'll run this application. So node app.js, and you can see that something happened, but we didn't basically log our token. So I'll log it, console.log. Okay, let's try to run it again. And this is our token. Let's copy it. One interesting thing, you will see that all the JWT tokens will start with EY especially. So it's one interesting thing to note. Okay, so this is our token. Let's try to verify it. I'll write verify token, or I should write console.log, verify token. Let me just pass the token over here. I'll paste it and I'll run it, and it says true. That means our token was successfully verified. And now let's say I change the secret to, instead of tutorac, I change it to ABCXYZ. Save it. If I run our app now, it says true, which is very strange because it shouldn't be saying true. Let me check, did I not save it? Okay, let's check now. It's still saying true. That is weird. Let's check why it is saying true. Okay, so when we have decoded, we use jwt.verify. Sorry about that. I used the decode functionality of JWT. I was supposed to use the verify functionality. Okay, so now if I write it, it gives me false. That's correct. Let's write tutorac back over here, and now it should say true for us. And yep, that's what we're getting. So jwt.verify is actually the right function. Okay, so with the help of this, we can know what is the type of, or if the token is valid or not. Second thing, we want to check the access. So we can check the access by writing const decoded is equals to this thing, verified token, and let's say access expected. Okay, here I will write if let's say access expected is equal to decoded dot user type. If it is equal, then console.log access present ACC access present and return true, right? Otherwise, the token is valid, but the access is not present. Okay, so I'll remove it and I'll write return false. Okay, otherwise, I can just write console.log token, or I can write something like this. Basically, I'll just print a log statement. Token is valid. Otherwise, I'll write over here console.log access absent. Okay. Otherwise, here I will write console.log token invalid. Let's check now. So it says token is valid, but access is absent. Oh, that's because we have to check for one more thing. So here I will write, let's say, doctor, for example. Or let's say we have manager, right? Let's say we have director privileges, director. It says false, but as soon as I write manager, it says true. So that's how we can check for the accesses that every single user will have with the help of JWT. I want to repeat one more statement that there are other ways to do this as well, and these ways will become more complicated, but behind the scenes and on the very fundamental level, they're all doing something very similar. So that's pretty much it from my side in this video about authentication and authorization. We do this kind of live videos every day. So in case if you enjoy watching videos like this, please make sure that you hit this like and subscribe button. Let me go ahead and see in the comment sections in case if anybody has any questions. So as of now, I don't really see anybody having any questions, but that's okay. In case if at any moment of time, if you feel like you have any question, you can always feel free to write that down in the comment section and I will get to it as soon as I can. So yep, that's pretty much it from my side, and I will see you in the next YouTube live video. Until then, stay connected with us at TutorAct.